Okay, so Year 9s, what we're having a go at today is looking at some unseen poetry. Now, this is something that you will do more and more as you move through GCSE. We've already studied a couple of poems in quite a lot of detail, and what happens next is that you're then given a poem to analyse on your own using the knowledge that you've got from the poems that you've already studied. So we've studied Who's for the Game by Jessie Pope, we've studied Dulce Decorum Est, and now we're going to be looking at The Soldier by Rupert Brooke, but going through it in a lot less detail and you using the knowledge that you found from those other two poems to analyse it yourself. So let's have a look. Our learning outcome then is to analyse an unseen poem and compare it with one that's been previously studied. Keywords is sonnet, and we'll come on to exactly what a sonnet is in a few minutes. So, a new poet then, Rupert Brooke, was born in Rugby, August the 3rd, 1887. He went to Cambridge University, which is one of the top universities in the country. It gives us an impression that he went there because he was a very intelligent young man and he was a good poet. In 1911, his first book of poetry was published. And in 1915, he was asked to join the Royal Navy by Winston Churchill, and he accepted. Brooke sailed to Gallipoli to fight the Turks. He was pleased about this as he'd always wanted to do battle with the Turks. It's a picture of Rupert Brooke and a quote from him in 1915. I suddenly realised that the ambition of my life has been, since I was 2, to go on a military expedition against the Turks. So it's something that he's always dreamed of, like you might have dreamed of always being a footballer or wanting to be a fireman or be a vet. Rupert Brooke always wanted to go on a military expedition against the Turks. We saw that quote we've just looked at was from 1915. Well, at 4:46 on 23rd of April 1915, which is St George's Day, Rupert Brooke died of blood poisoning on a French hospital ship moored on the bay of the Greek island Greek island of Skyros. We buried him in the same evening in an olive grove where he'd sat with us on Tuesday, one of the loveliest places on this earth, with grey-green olives round him, one weeping above his head. So that was obviously a quote to somebody who knew him, and that's where he was buried, on one of the Greek islands. Okay, quite sad really that somebody who had always wanted to go and do something, it was his life's ambition to go on this military expedition, and again, just like many other soldiers, he's paid with his life. This is a poem by Rupert Brooke called The Soldier, and we're going to read it through, but as I said, I'm not going to give you as much help or support with this one, and we're going to go more or less straight into some activities, although we'll give you a bit of information before we do those. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by sons of home. And think this heart all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind no less, gives somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learnt of friends and gentleness, in hearts at peace under an English heaven. A slightly more difficult poem, this one. Read it through a couple of times. Try and get some understanding of what Rupert Brooke's trying to get across here. Think about Jessie Pope with her propaganda poems. Think about Wilfred Owen with the harsh reality of war and the gas attacks. Which one does this feel a little bit closer to? So we mentioned the key word sonnet. A sonnet is a poem with 14 lines divided into 2 verses, typically having 10 syllables per line. Sonnets are typically used as love poems. So if these are typically love poems and he's written a poem, what's the object or the subject of Brooke's affection? What is he writing a love poem about here? Any thoughts? Have another read through the poem. Having now that knowledge that it's a sonnet, so it's a love poem, what is it that he loves? So, a bit of context then. It's a sonnet exploring the feelings of patriotism, so feeling that love for your country. So the soldier was written to praise the men who went to war and save and defend such a great country. Rupert Brooke loves England so much that he's written a love poem about it, about how wonderful the country is. And we've got that quote here, there shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed. So basically what he was saying in that part of the poem is that if he got killed, or if any soldier gets killed abroad, and their body gets buried abroad, then there shall be in that earth a richer dust concealed. It will make the earth of that country even better for having a British soldier buried in it. Because Britain and England is so good. That's sort of what he's saying here. So it says the sonnet continues to praise England and to say that it is worth fighting for so that England will continue to thrive. So we know that he was born 3rd of August 1887, died St George's Day 23rd of April 1915. He did not live long enough for his feelings towards the war to turn bitter. Perhaps if he had seen the amount of deaths, remember we said Wilfred Owen died only 7 days before the end of World War I in 1918. Perhaps if Rupert Brooke had seen more of the war, remember it ran from 1914 to 1918, so it was only a year in when he joined up. If it was 3 or 4 years in, he would understand more of the suffering, more of the loss, more of the absolute agony that many of these soldiers went through. So for today, we've just got 2 activities for you to have a go at before we go into this poem any deeper. First question, what feelings would the poem create in the soldiers' hearts? So remember, this is a love poem. We know a little bit about what it's about. It's about patriotism. It's about love for one's country, about doing what's right to save the country. Explain in 1 paragraph using at least 1 quote from the poem. So try and write a peel paragraph here explaining what feelings the poem would create in the soldiers' hearts. Okay, so that should give you probably about 10 minutes to have a go at that. When you've done that one, we've got a second activity for you to do. So second activity then, the poem is propaganda. Links in with Jessie Pope and her idea that war's good, war's fun, everybody should come along and join up. What image does it present about war and dying? And again, I would like you to explain that with a reference to the poem. So another paragraph, this time thinking about what images this poem presents about war and about dying. And you need at least 1 quote from the poem in there. So you've got 2 activities to complete, 2 paragraphs to write. Try to use peel, certainly use point evidence explain. If you can get some language analysis in there as well, that's even better, okay? Should spend about 10 minutes on each paragraph. Off you go.